Hello, welcome to another Gundam Battle Operation 2 video. That is the new suit, the Full Armor Gundam Mark III. And this suit's been leaked for a while now, and honestly I kind of forgot about it because there's some other stuff that happened with GBO2. But yeah, it's finally here now. It's the second suit of Springfest, and yeah, we'll see how it is compared to other 600 supports. But I only have one match here for you. I did have two, but I'll save the second one for another time. And before we get fully started, I gotta say that a lot of different paint schemes and colors look really nice on the suit. Like I think it's just the way it's designed and the way the paint is applied to different places. It looks pretty sweet when you have it like fully white or fully black, red, combined with some other primary colors. It looks really fucking nice. But anyway, now we're gonna start proper. Yeah, it is a 600 support, and yeah, we'll get straight into the stats here. You have 17,000 health. You have 28 ballistic and beam resistance. You have 10 melee resistance, you have 45 range strength, 15 melee strength, 120 movement speed, 185 boost speed. You have 75 thruster gauge with 66 turning speed, which I believe goes into 75 in space. Also, our team is going to be playing very weird right now. They're going to go all the way around on B side on this map. You know what? At least it's not Arctic base, so at least we're ring around the rosing entire city and not around one little small point in the map. But anyway. And now for slots, you have 10 close, 14 mid, and 20 long range slots. And yeah, you can definitely build this suit up from a bunch of different ways. For me, specifically for me, I did more range strength and more beam resistance because beam is going to be the main thing you're going to be fighting at this cost. Although 28 ballistic resistance is pretty nice. The 10 melee resistance feels like nothing to the raids, I didn't build that one up because there's not a whole lot of situations I was in where generals come up to fight me. Usually, I'm already like low enough to where I'm gonna fucking die anyway. So, although the 17,000 health does feel a little bit weak at times. That's mostly because I would get caught and then I would get stun locked to death. So I think it can go for a little bit more health, but maybe I'll build something for that as well. But yeah, I'll see how that works. But yeah, everything seems nice here, and of course you definitely want to build up. It's encouraging you to build up for longer range because of the 20 slots. So it depends on what you want to do, but there are some builds you can do with this suit. Now for your weapons here, we start off with your primary weapons. You have the Full Armor Gundam Mark III Beam Rifle Grenade Launcher, which is 2,200 damage. You get 6 rounds and 450 range. That is it's your basic stun rifle, and it does do a lot of good damage as well. Since I built up for range damage, I was getting consistently over 3,000 damage per shot, and yeah, 6 rounds of that. And if you can work that in with your other weapons, yeah, you'll be doing some pretty damn good damage buildup. Or even some really good stun locks as well. That will be a huge benefit for this suit. Next weapon here is the Mark III Beam Saber, which is specifically, it is not the Full Armor Gundam Mark III Beam Saber, it's just the Mark III Beam Saber, so that way you can actually use the level 2 and level 3 Beam Sabers in unrestricted costs, or mix-up, so that's nice. That is 2,600 damage, and this thing does have, it has 15 melee strength, so you actually can get some pretty nice melee damage off on somebody. I did mention this thing does have many stuns, so you can get closer and then you go for a downswing, and there's some times where I'll get over 3,000 damage downswings when stacked upon the other damage this thing does, so you'll be doing some pretty gross damage to certain generals if they allow you to do it to them. So yeah, pretty nice here. And now for your secondary weapons, you have the Beam Cannon ×2, 800 damage per shot. You shoot 2 beams at once. You have 55% heat rate and 450 range, and yeah, that is, if you're familiar with the Gundam Mark III, it's basically the Mark III's shoulder cannons. It takes 2 of those to stun. It doesn't stun by itself with one shot. Pretty good for mixing up with your other weapons for stun accumulation. Although you definitely want to use it not as the first weapon to fire, since it doesn't stun. You probably want to start with this next weapon here, which is actually pretty good for doing that, and that is the Armor Beam Cannon ×2, which is 400 damage per shot. It shoots 2 rounds at a burst of 3 with 35% heat rate and 400 range, and you can charge it. And if you fully charge it, it actually penetrates, and because it has a lot of stun accumulation, you can immediately follow up with either your beam rifle or the shoulder cannon to get a stun, and it can break maneuver armor pretty fast. And it's really useful for that, and it can actually stop damage control as well. or go through damage control. So that's pretty useful. And the best part is that you can actually walk and use that at the same time. So the only downside is that it has a 100% heat rate if you fully charge it. But with a certain skill the suit has that we'll mention later on, you don't have to worry about that too much. It does ready up kind of fast though, out of overheat, so that's nice. And now you have the Hyper Beam Cannon times 2, which is 1,300 damage per shot. You shoot 2. And a 100% heat rate with 450 range. And this thing does do a lot of damage. I've gotten consistently over 3,000 damage on people. It does do an instant stun, and you can follow up with any other weapons, with any of your other weapons as well. So pretty nice to start off with to get into a crazy stun lock, because of the way you can. So I mentioned before, you can use the armor beam cannons with your shoulder cannons to get a stun, right? So you can use that, go into your hyper beam cannon to your beam rifle, and or maybe even your next weapon here, the beam rifle grenade launcher. So that's 3-4 stuns right there that do a lot of damage. And for the grenade launcher, you have 1,500 damage. You get 1 round and it's 200 range. And because it's a ballistic, you'll be doing a lot more damage to people because people don't build for ballistic at this cost. And yeah, I've gotten moments where I got almost close to 2,500 damage with that grenade shot, which is pretty gross when you combine it with the other damage you can do with this suit. So yeah, the stun locks on this suit is really nice. The stun accumulation is quite good as well. You just have to be careful when and where to apply your non-stunning weapons, because there's moments where I'll start off with my beam cannon times 2, and I go, oh wait, I can't stun him with that one, then get fucked over. But yeah, so weapons on here are pretty nice. The only problem is it's not specifically with this suit, but there are times in this game, because of its peer-to-peer connection, where it looks like when you're shooting your double beam anything guns, you can be shoulder cannons, your double beam guns like the double Zeta or something, it looks like both beams will hit, but only one hits. And there's times where it looks like I'm hitting somebody completely, and then I do 500 damage, and I go, oh, okay, thank you, game. Fuck you. But yeah, so other than that, just be wary of your stun accumulation weapon. Which one's your stun accumulation weapons, which one's not, which shouldn't be too hard for most people. Just it takes a little bit to get used to when you're playing a suit like this. Also, I believe I mentioned the beam cannon time, so you have to stand still to fire, and the hyper beam cannon, you also have to stand still to fire as well. Now for your skills, you have radar level 2, you have scope level 2, you have data link, frontline support level 2, which I believe is 10% off with their suits that have that skill as well. You have scouting device, so you can zoom in and out further. Or I should say zoom in further. You have aerospace gimbal times 2, so you can look up and down further in space. You have, or angle yourself, I should say. You have shock absorber level 3, you have leg buffer, you have ambac level 2, you have force injectors level 2, which is quite nice. You have shoulder add-on buffer level 2, which I believe is 15% where your shoulders are. And then you have back binder cushioning, which is or level 1 of that, so you have 10% off. I'm pretty sure it's going to be your entire backpack there, with how it juts out. And finally, overload comes back. Or is back, I should say. But hey, timeout. We'll see what we got going on here. Real quick, mission completed, and we'll see what we got going on here today. And hey, top assist score, nice. And I'll be praising the raid and one of our generals. And unfortunately, we got a pretty good score, but we got 4th place, probably because we didn't get shot at the most. Yeah, there's a bunch of 2s and 1s in there. Actually, there's a 3rd place there too. But yeah, I didn't get too much pursuit assist, and I didn't get shot at a whole bunch, so it's going to give us 4th place. But oh well, it looks like we did pretty good as well anyway. But yeah, so Overload is back, and if you guys don't know what Overload is, that was on the Rick Deja, although it felt kind of weird on the Rick Deja because it only had one heat-based beam weapon, and it could be kind of useful, you know, but on this suit has, you know, 3 heat-based weapons. And what Overload does is if you have a weapon that's already overheated, it will get it out of overheat, and every shot has 30% less heat rate on it. So that 100% heat rate that your hyper beam cannon has, well, now you can use it again, and that's pretty big because let's say you start off a stun with that. Okay, so now you activate Overload. you go to your beam rifle, get another stun, and then you go back to your hyper beam cannon for another stun. And then you can go into your grenade launcher, and then back into your... You see where we're going here? You can keep going with the stuns here, potentially. Or you can just spam every single beam weapon you have. Just go crazy. Go like a seed suit and just start spamming beams everywhere you go. It's pretty useful for, like the armor beam cannon. As we mentioned before, it has a 100% heat rate if you fully charge it. Well, let's say you fully charge it, you got your stun lock or your accumulation stun. Okay, well, now I'm going to activate overload again. So now I can fire even more with that, or maybe go for another fully charged hit, and then go for any of your other weapons you have. So yeah, overload is quite useful on this suit, and I like it on this suit a lot. I like it a lot more than I like it on the Rick DJ. So I think it's pretty useful. And speaking useful, this suit, compared to other 600 supports, I think it's actually pretty good at its job if, if the enemy team is trying not to single you out. Of course, you're still pretty big fodder for raids, although if you do get the first shot off, you have potential to stop a raid in their place. So you have some kind of defense against raids, depending on if you get the first hit or not. It's really useful for having that backup at mid-range with you, or if you're a general and you have like this suit at close range with you, you can take out another general relatively fast, especially if they activate overload. So I should mention a downside for overload as well, is that when it goes away, because it's on a time limit, that your weapons will automatically overheat even if they're not in overheat already, and they'll take longer to get out of overheat. So for a lot of people, excuse me, for a lot of people, they'd like to use overload when they're about to die. That way they can not have that benefit of not having other weapons ready when they need them to. For me, I use it like that as well, although there's moments where I use it to initiate a push. The other video I had ready for today was actually in space. Taru was on the enemy team, but I didn't do it on Taru, but the enemy ace got selected, and I used the overload to basically just keep damaging him, keep whittling down his health. And because I mentioned that the hyper beam cannon doesn't fully overheat, because that 30% less overheat or 30% less heat rate on the overload, you can keep using that to stun. So if you're one of those guys that can keep track of your weapons, you'll definitely make a lot of use out of this suit. And that's going to be it for the Full Armor Gundam Mark III, and that's going to be in this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe if you want, I'd really appreciate it. And type up in the comment section how you feel about the Full Armor Gundam Mark III. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I like it. I played a couple of matches, pretty good matches so far with it. It's pretty easy to build up damage with the suit. It's pretty easy to get stuns for your team. The only downsides I have with it is that sometimes it feels like 17,000 health can feel pretty low. And depending on what weapon you use first, which is more my fault, not the suit's fault, it can be pretty hard to get a first stun. But if you're actually using your stun weapons and your stun accumulations, this suit will be pretty easy to learn if you're willing to commit to it, and you can do a lot of helpful things for your team. But I still think the C1 still has a leg up on this in regards to just straight up just murdering a general on the enemy team, because sometimes the damage is not all there for this suit at times. As we mentioned before, like peer-to-peer, sometimes it looks like you hit both shots and then you only hit one, you do 900 damage, and it's like, okay, thank you, that's it, and then you get murdered. But I think it's a pretty good suit, and if you want to roll for it, go ahead. But as you know, this is only the second suit of Springfest, and there's rumblings of Unicorn coming too, so we'll see how that goes. And with that, I'll see you guys later. Bye.